Shall we take some questions for Kuster at the stage? Or shall we start?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So if there are...
I'll leave it over to Melchior now, who's going to be chairing the session.
Hi. So if there are any questions from the session, we can have a discussion now. Okay, if not, we can start the session. So my name is Melchior. I'm from part of the Malta Council for Science and Technology. I've been a CNC for COST since 2015, so for the past 6 years now. And apart from COST, I form part of the RNI unit. And as a reminder, there will be a session with regards to the actual MMCST funding schemes, which will be tomorrow at around 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Without further ado, I will leave my colleagues. Next to me, on my left, there is Dr. Lourdes Farrugia. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes. So good morning, everyone. I'm Lourdes Farrugia from a lecturer at the Department of Physics, Faculty of Science. But I was invited here as cost action chair of one of the cost actions that was approved back in 2018. But before I go into that, my involvement with cost started way back earlier. I mean, I joined the Department of Physics about 11 years ago now. And when I started off my PhD, my supervisor was lucky enough that he was already an MC member of 2 cost actions. And I was roped in a way that I was participating in a few meetings. I was also attending training schools. So that gave me the opportunity to meet the people who were doing the research in the field at the forefront of research. And that gave me the opportunity to, for example, participate in activities like short-term scientific missions. And I think they are worth a mention here because they were quite critical. And I think for PhD students, they present an excellent opportunity. Short-term scientific missions give you the opportunity to travel to another laboratory or another research institution, organization, whatever, whoever member is part of the action. You can travel for a few days or up to a maximum of, for example, 3 months. I believe it's 3 months. And you can go in the lab, work on a proposal, work on the research per se. So there you can develop or establish very strong collaborations, as happened in my case. Along with those were very crucial in my part, my involvement in cost were also the ITC conference grants. Those were very important. ITC conference grants are grants that will help you or provide partially some funding to attend conferences and present your work, your research within, obviously, something that is in line with the topics of the action. But I think those at the initial stages of my career were very critical during my PhD. Following that, I mean, when I completed my PhD, I had a better picture of the field on the challenges that were within my field. To give you an idea, my work is focusing on electromagnetic fields, the use of electromagnetic fields to develop medical devices. And along the years, I have seen, for example, technologies that they spend years and years developing the technology, only to find out, for example, that it is not technologically possible. Okay, so the interaction, how the electromagnetic fields are interacting with the biological tissue is based on contrast between healthy and diseased tissue. So if that contrast doesn't exist, then it's useless developing a high-tech, the technology, fully developing it, and then only to find out that a contrast doesn't exist. And that lies at the fundamental investigation of how these electromagnetic fields are actually interacting with the biological tissues. So that was one aspect. But also another part where it comes to the commercialization of the technology. There are technologies that are fully developed, provide excellent results, okay? I have a clear, one of the examples which I was literally shocked was ablation of lesions in the esophagus. The treatment, as it stands, is with bending. They like isolate them with bends. And there are a lot of challenges and risks for the patient. There was a group in Galway developed a full the technology, but then only not to make it to the market because it wasn't financially viable. Okay, so there's the translation of the devices from the lab to the market. So this like gave an opportunity in terms of these issues, these challenges, was to be addressed with networking. Okay, combining or bringing together different people from different areas. We all speak different languages, okay, and somehow we need to interact so that we will help these technologies from the original idea way into the clinical setting. And this is what we are doing in Cost My Wave. Cost My Wave, we have 3 working groups. One dealing with fundamental interactions, one dealing with the optimization of the technology based on the knowledge of the interaction, and the other part, which is helping the translation of these technologies. We've started off with, I think we were about 8 countries, with about, I think we were 12 to 13 proposals. Now we are about 35, okay, with 2 international partners from the US, and we taught up to more than 350 researchers, members in different working groups. Before COVID hit, we were doing really, really well with loads of activities going on, funding more than, I think, 17, 18 STSMs per grant period. Unfortunately, last year, this has really slowed down. But now, luckily enough, we're trying to get the momentum again and get the activities going on.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe another question which I might ask is how does your participation in cost affected your early stage career at University of Malta, and maybe the involvement of the young researchers. So how do you think the actual cost action helps young researchers in your field?
How cost helped me throughout my career? I mean, it was fundamental, as I've already briefly mentioned before. The fact that you get the opportunity to meet the big ones, okay, when you are just starting, because this is the strong point of cost. Cost doesn't differentiate between the fact that you're starting off in your PhD. I was still getting invited to the meetings and meet the experts in the field. So this is the really a strong point if you are in early on in your career. Second question, sorry,
So the actual early stage researchers, so how do you think they actually benefit from cost?
Yes, very much. The activities are all, the activities particularly, as I said, the short-term scientific missions, the ITC conference grants are critical for early career researchers. So I strongly recommend to get involved in cost action. And as Janet, I fully agree with what Janet had already mentioned. Getting experience, first-hand experience before actually going on into writing up a proposal is very important, because even that way, when you are experiencing and participating in activities, you know the purpose of the cost policies, okay? Because that is fundamental. It's important to highlight that cost doesn't give money for the research person. Okay, it's funds the activities that will help you network, like meetings. These short-term scientific missions will help you to go to the lab. You can join research projects that are ongoing in the lab, but it will not fund the actual research going on there. But it will fund you traveling there, your accommodation, subsistence allowance, etc.
Okay, thank you very much for your insight. maybe we can move. Okay, so there's a question from the floor.
Hello. So
Hi.
the cost action funds the networking, and therefore I assume that the research must be already been going on in different parts of the world, and you just put everyone together. So you need to have the research going on first, is that right?
Yes, but I mean, you can join other ongoing activities as well. But it doesn't mean that cost will also bring up new ideas. So this is what we are trying to do right now. We have established like some points, and now we are trying to try and find like additional funding, extra funding to actually conduct the research.
To clarify, if you...
Sorry, may I add on to the previous question before I get to this one? Yes, the important thing, it could be an area of research which is ancillary to your own. So you're interested in, you might have done some preliminary work in, you might have read it up, and you join the cost action to learn more about it. But you do have to show some commitment that you will, yes, continue with the research, because you may be asked. For example, there are quite a few actions even now about migration. And they will ask, for example, for you to collect data, etc. You can apply, of course. We're talking about university areas, internally for the university research funds we get every year. But then, of course, or use your academic work resources. But then, of course, you can apply for the larger grant. So it's really a stepping stone. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
But basically, in your answer, you are answering my question as well. Because my question was, okay, the cost action is helping you in advancing in your knowledge about the area and making contacts and networking. But if you go on to do research and you can apply for funds from other sources
Exactly.
and still be eligible.
Yes. And then plus, of course, besides the fund of the university, every year MCST comes out with the internationalization grants as well, which you can use to complement, of course, any research you might be having in that area. By the way, Professor Molestano is unavoidably detained. He's not sure whether he'll be able to make it, so apologies from his end.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe we can pass the floor to Dr. Jean-Paul De Luca. Maybe you can introduce yourself and you can explain your role and experience in cost. Just need to switch on the mic.
Hello?
Yes, perfect. So I'll pass on the floor to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Just by a quick introduction, so I'm Jean-Paul De Luca from the Department of Philosophy. I'm a senior lecturer in philosophy. My areas are mostly the history of philosophy, intellectual history, political thought, political philosophy, and those areas. My involvement in cost started a few years ago in an action that has been concluded since then in 2018, reassembling the Republic of Letters. Basically, it was a very mixed group of researchers, broadly speaking, interested in the digital humanities. Or rather, the project, the action itself was meant to bring together this varied group of researchers from historians of science, historians of philosophy, pure historians, if you like, librarians, archivists, mathematicians, programmers, visualization experts, computer scientists, etc., to try and study what was essentially a network of scholars, philosophers, scientists, what we call men of letters, who formed the so-called Respublica Literarum, the Republic of Letters, roughly from 1500s to 1800s. Now, of course, thinking of those 3 centuries, 1500s to 1800s, one immediately thinks of the historical and archival research, which is what a good chunk of us in the action were involved in. But the first part of the action was actually trying to bring together the experience, or rather the limitations, that researchers were finding in trying to bring together and sort of improve their research. And these are things like, for example, if you think of letters, this is about correspondence, right? So people writing to each other. So thousands upon thousands of letters were written in that period. Some lesser known figures, but also people who we know, like Galileo, who wrote many letters. And you can see that, for example, Galileo was in touch in letters through letters with many of the great scientists of his time. But the main problem was that unless you had an exceptional memory, but even with that you couldn't get beyond a certain point, it was very hard to remember who was writing what and at which time. So with the advent of data mining, of big data science, etc., this action was trying to bring together the experiences of mainly scholars, historians, etc., trying to, first of all, problematize their research, and then trying to find solutions, and I mean technical solutions, in order to address those issues. So this was how the whole thing was framed. The idea of the action was really to create, right, a multilateral framework for the study of this Republic of Letters, which was interesting because through the different meetings, as you were saying, which we had, MC management committee level, through the annual meetings, through the working groups meetings, etc., what we started finding was that we were creating a network of scholars from different fields studying another network of scholars from different fields of 300 years ago, and trying to see how that correspondence can be brought together, and I mean literally brought together, into databases which could be easily searched, which actually made a lot of sense, because you can see, so when I mentioned Galileo before, so on the same day or in the same week that Galileo was writing to X, he was also writing to Y and saying this. And this, of course, is a very important resource, because you can just search to understand and to write and to interpret, to work on the history of science, philosophy, political thought, etc. Even because, at least in the history of philosophy, for example, we've had a tendency of focusing more on books, on published books, and less on letters. Letters have been sidelined. Whereas in reality, what happens is that books in the early modern period were subject to censorship and self-censorship. So if you wanted to really know what authors thought, letters tended to be a far more reliable and revealing source. I'm just thinking of someone like Descartes, for example, right, whose letters show not only his contribution to mathematics, for example, but also the self-censorship that went into his famous books. There's one letter in particular where I think 9 times in just 2 pages, he uses this phrase "entre nous," between us. He's telling his correspondent, just keep this between us, which actually in terms of his ideas was very revealing and very important. That action, as I said, brought together these different scholars. I had joined just after it was approved, more or less, and it happened because a couple of years before, I think I had just finished my PhD. A couple of years before, I had attended a conference at Oxford, which was organized by the chair of this action, right? And so when they're trying to expand in the initial phases, so they said perhaps what I was working on might be of interest there, but actually I learned a lot, even in terms of things that I hadn't considered before, that are very, as you said, peripheral to what I was working on. In fact, just at the end of the summer, a data set of correspondence I've been working on will join that platform together with with the others. So just to say that even when an action is concluded, the outcomes, you have the immediate, tangible deliverables that are listed, which of course have been fulfilled 2 years ago. But the effects of that action, and this is something which I would like to highlight, and the work that comes out of the ideas that are shared, the work that's shared in an action, can keep you busy for, well, if not a lifetime, but quite a few years after the action is concluded. And I think this is one of the big benefits of COST. And now, more recently, just before COVID started, I joined the MC of another action, PIMO, People in Motion, which is studying a broader period, still starting in the late 1400s, but up to the early 20th century, and is basically looking at displacement of people. So migration comes into that, but also displacement and movement of objects of paper, so the circulation of books, the circulation of letters, and things like textiles, etc. So it's much broader, but what is being studied in the bigger picture is sort of the emotional drives behind movement of different kinds. To be honest, since things have been stalled quite significantly because of COVID, I haven't quite immersed myself yet into this particular action, even though we've had, in my working group at least, we've had some meetings online, an online seminar stroke conference, but we're really looking forward to be able to meet in person. And one perhaps last thing, just picking up from what Lord was saying, one of the things that I remember had struck me as well was the kind of equality, if you like, that there is in this, in not just in the setup, but also in the way, in the interaction. So there were people who were my seniors in terms of experience, in terms of everything else, but also others who were PhD students, early career researchers, etc. So, and I could see that interaction, both formal and informal, was extremely fruitful. And in fact, in the Reassembling the Republic of Letters action, we had the final conference, which I convened here at the Valletta campus, which was a really good experience. And I remember that was this particular aspect was highlighted at the end of that conference as well. So it is something very encouraging especially for early career researchers, advanced PhD students, graduate students, etc.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. I think now we can pass the floor to the next speaker, who is Professor Luciano Molestanio. Maybe you can introduce yourself and you can explain your role in COST.
Hi, good morning. Hello. Yeah. Good morning. So I've actually been involved in COST directly and indirectly since when we've made the first push as a country to come back into COST or get involved in COST. So my first involvement was about 10 years ago. And more recently, in fact, this year, I became the chair of the scientific committee. The scientific committee, I was already representing Malta on the scientific committee. The scientific committee is the technical body that helps with evaluations. We also use external evaluators, but then we make a recommendation to the CSOs, and the scientific committee does that. We also brainstorm and come up with new ideas. For example, there's something which is fairly new, which is the innovation grant, which started last year, which also was a fruit of the scientific committee. And to be honest, I involved myself in the scientific committee 2 years ago because I really believe in COST. I apologize, I was a bit late, but from what I heard, we all share the same sentiment. You get to meet great people in a specific field. I've been in meetings with COST, in COST meetings, where literally there were Nobel laureates. And they were sitting there having coffee and eating with PhD students, not theirs, other PhD students. So there's also that element. A good COST action, and many of them are, will literally have the who's who of the fields. And it's not just Europe, that's the beauty of it. Because very often the Americans, the Japanese, the Australians will still join as non-members. So they'll still attend the meetings. So I really believe in the mission of cost, and that's why I involved myself in the scientific committee. And, you know, this year has been really strange with online meetings and Zoom and all that. But the term of the scientific committee chair was up, and I was asked if I would be interested in running, and I said, sure. I mean, I'm interested in serving the mission, and I guess here I am. So hopefully for the next 3 years, I'll be doing this role. So chairing the committee of the 38 scientific committee members, and helping not only choose the new proposals, but also come up with innovative new things that COST can do, especially in this special year, where COST is now half a century old. There aren't too many programs which are 50 years old in the EU. And the beauty of the scientific committee is we're a very diverse group. I'm a physicist working in solar energy, but there are medical people, there are forestry people, psychologists, social sciences. So there's obviously a very, very diverse group. And because of that, I think you get the wisdom of crowds. So you get this different ideas and sometimes really out of the box thinking. And I really look forward to making a positive contribution and helping COST. But of course, from a personal point of view, I think, you know, it helps that people from Malta get involved and we raise the country's profile within the EU and the research community. So and when I started going into COST, most sections didn't even have a COST member from Malta. Now I believe Janet told us 60-something%.
It's close to 70% now.
Close to 70%. And in no small measure through the excellent work of MCSD and Janet, because they were here from the very beginning, right? And today, many of the actions, when they get submitted, I immediately notice Malta's already there. So they already found somebody in the, and in fact, that's the best way to start an action. If you're actually through a network, you're already in the submitting committee. You still need to, I believe, apply then to become the representative, but you're already part of the community. So we're here to help. So if there's any way we can help, we're in a small country, so it's very easy to reach us.
Okay, thank you very much. I can pass then the floor to you, Janet. Maybe you can actually provide us some insight on your 11 years, I would say now, experiencing in COST in Malta, and maybe the future of Malta in COST.
Thank you very much, Mentor. Can you hear me? Yes. Thanks very much, and thanks, Luciana, for making the time. I know you have a very busy agenda, so thank you all three speakers and Vicar, of course, for being here today. It's really important for us, and we've had we have Krister, and I'm sure he's still there, and Ronald as well, speaking to us earlier on, so they should be listening in besides the online persons. Yes, I was asked to help out with COST because I myself had been involved in the COST section in 2010, but actually Malta signed up to COST before we were members of the EU in 1998. So we've actually been participating in COST for a long time. Before it was more cumbersome and more bureaucratic to be participating in COST. Actually, the nominations actually had to go all the way through what is the equivalent now of Dar Malta and Brussels. So it actually was a country-based signature. And now the process has been simplified a great deal. And in fact, it's a silent signatory. So in fact, with this recent change, the COST countries immediately, they sign, it's taken that they sign the memorandum of understanding, whereas before we actually had to sort of sign it online. I've seen it grow. It wasn't easy. People assume that EU grants are equals a lot of bureaucratic red tape, a lot of reporting. It's true. If you're involved in an FP project or Horizon project, you know, it's a lot of work. I myself am involved in quite a few. And it is a lot of work. And thank God the project support office will help out, especially with the financials, etc., reporting, etc. But cost is extremely simple because basically what happens when you're a cost member, the only bureaucracy you have is at the beginning when you apply. That simple 3-page application form I showed you, that's it. Afterwards, it's true, sometimes we do carry out a little survey to see how you're getting on, or people contact us perhaps because they may have some problems participating, or the actions not working as they wish it to be, etc. But that's our role. The only paperwork there is basically getting reimbursed when you go for meetings. That's it. If you're a cost MC member, that's it. So getting your flight reimbursed and getting reimbursed for your stay. Of course, if you're a cost chair like Lourdes, there's lots more work, but there is actually a part of the budget, which is around 15%, which goes towards, perhaps you'd like to explain that and how the university can help you in that way, Lourdes?
No, there's this scientific expenditure, which is the money that you spend on activities, networking activities like meetings, training schools, etc. And on top of that, then at the end of the grant period, there's a 15% which goes to the grant holder manager, which Janet already mentioned. Now, in our case, the grant holder is the University of Malta, so I have a person from project support office who's dealing with all the reimbursements. So the reimbursements, I gather all the information and then pass it on to the grant holder. So those 15% are allocated to the grant holder, who is responsible of doing the financial reporting. Obviously, then there's the scientific reporting, which the grant holder, myself as chair, together with the working group leaders, we work on.
Thanks, Lourdes. So there is help. Another thing is some people approach us because they want to participate. Sometimes I get to know about what people are doing through their involvement in cost. And sometimes there are unusual things too. For example, I'm sure you've all heard about the Phoenician shipwreck of the coast of Shlendi, which Professor Timmy Gambin is leading. And actually, a few years ago, one of the dives towards the shipwreck, which, as you know, its site is a secret, so that it's not pillared. Nobody will go and steal from it. Actually, one of the dives was a short-term scientific mission. So it was actually because he's involved in a couple of cost actions on undersea archaeology, and one of the dives was associated with that shipwreck, actually visiting the shipwreck. Another cost action was we had a few years ago, a meeting here, actually. It was very interesting to what Jean-Paul mentioned earlier, this interaction between the humanities and the sciences. So looking at how engineering, underground engineering can be used to research historical buildings. And in this case, they were actually looking at what there is underneath here, the Jesuits Church, which is part of the Valletta campus. Another one was looking at old coins and seeing scientific makeup of old coins. And I think this is the beauty of course, it's so transdisciplinary. We've had colleagues looking at, these are colleagues both from MCAST and university, looking at bees and the effect of pollution, of course, building, etc., less green space, and bees are essential, of course, for the whole ecosystem, extremely useful. We have the Institutes of Space Science very much involved, I would say, in practically all the astronomy-related cost actions. And now they're forming part of this huge network, identifying black holes in the universe, etc. A lot of sustainable energy. We've had even Transport Malta involved in a couple of cost actions, and even the Planning Authority are involved in a cost action on bridges, for example. So we really need more people on board, not only from academia, the research institutes, but also from public entities and regulatory affairs. For example, we've had So on homelessness, for example. So in that case, we contacted both SETA as the state's regulator and even Caritas, for example, to be involved in a cost action. So it's really huge. It never ends.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we can all share one experience in cost. So I actually was part of a cost action way back in 2010. We had a meeting here, and it was about the chemical aspects of certain organometallic chemistry. So it's 11 years ago now. Maybe we can say one word that actually explains the involvement of cost. So what actually cost signifies to you? What does it mean, cost to you? If you can explain to it in one sentence, basically. Maybe you can start.
I think it fits with what I've been saying before. It's literally an opportunity. Okay, me having been exposed to cost from early on in my career, it presented a lot of opportunities, and it still does today. I mean, after 10 years being involved with different cost activities, now we are looking for further research. So it is an opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Luciano Molestanio.
The opportunity, no question. In fact, when Melker was talking about actions, I remembered an action most recently. It was an action about perovskites, which is the new thing in solar cells. And basically, anybody who's anybody in perovskites in Europe was part of this action. And the leader was not as young as you, but quite early in her career. After the cost action, she has really raised her research profile. I had 2 applications with her as collaborator. But I think it's a bit cliche, but I think for me, cost is networking. Because I've always liked to tell students, there's no such thing as a bad contact. And what cost does, if you get involved, is really help you form contacts, especially if you're young and new to a field. But even if you're established, people who have been in the field 20 years, still make new contacts, and sometimes those lead to new collaborations, new projects, new funding.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jean-Paul.
Okay, I was going to say opportunities in the plural, but just to come up with something different, I'd say surprises, in the sense that for me, cost has been quite a series of surprises, nothing out of this world, but the things go in directions that you don't expect them, right? You develop collaborations which you wouldn't have thought about. Through listening, participating, learning from the different meetings, you think your own research and the parts you want to take your own research in. So I would definitely say that once you get into a cost action, be ready for some interesting surprises in terms of what you learn, etc. I think that has been my experience. The moment I can remember different meetings in different places, but of course the final conference which we had in Malta in 2018, which was the final conference of the previous cost action, remains in my memory as the culmination of the action itself. So in that respect, it could have happened elsewhere. But I'm still remembering people here discussing what happens next. And in fact, as I said, there are some collaborations that are still going on. A member of that action is organizing a conference in Prague in September. So a few of us will actually be there as well. As I said at the beginning, and I'll just emphasize one more time, with cost, it's an excellent experience while it lasts, right? But its effects, its fruits, what comes out of it, really carry on afterwards. And if not for anything else, I think for this reason, it is worth joining and being part of COST.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll leave a final comment to you, Janet. Maybe you can explain to us in one sentence, was wonderful.
And perhaps, of course, there can be questions from the floor. I'm not sure of any questions online anyway. Still have time. For me, as I mentioned earlier, cost, from what I see and what I hear from the colleagues who become cost MC members, is like a ripple which grows into a wave. You know, think something small. Very often I've seen it many times this, in your professional academic research career, you say yes to something really small. I myself, when I decided which topic to do my PhD on, I was given the three options. In a split second, I decided what I was doing it in the UK, what I wanted to do my research on. And that has opened so many doors, incredible, a split second decision. You look back and you say, if I had decided to choose another topic instead of this, who knows where it would have left me. So very often, yes, it's a split second decision, a few minutes say, can I take this on, can I not, etc. But then it really grows. And I think Jean-Paul mentioned, it does lead to a lot of unexpected things, a lot of colleagues, a lot of contacts, and it does raise remote research profile. We do get ourselves as CNCs, as central coordinators, a lot of people asking, do you know anyone in Malta who works on this or on that? So we do try to have a good map of what research is happening. If not, we contact people. So, for example, there was, in this last call, there was a lot about food. And unfortunately, our contact, or rather the people in the Department of Food Science and Environmental Health and Faculty of Health Sciences are so busy, because the thing is to try to give chance to as many people as possible to participate in cost. If possible, an individual researcher does not participate in more than 2 actions at the same time. To give the chance to everybody to take part. And unfortunately, they're participating, both of them in 3 actions. So they said, look, we just can't take this on. So we're trying to see who it can be from other areas. Would you like to add something, Lucian, about this?
I wanted to just mention, let's not forget industry.
Yes.
Because industry in Malta, I think we've had relatively low participation, but if they're working in a field, actually they can benefit tremendously. And as Janet was saying, our problem is capacity. So involving industry, I think, really helps.
We did have one cost action, I remember, a few years ago about printing, and we actually managed to obtain an MC member. This person had a printing press, a family-owned printing press. Himself did not have a first degree, but he had years and years of experience. It's one of the best printing presses on the island. He applied and was accepted as an MC member. And in fact, he gave they really appreciated his input, because he actually gave the practical aspect, even though he did not have first degree. So really, we need more people from industry to take part and persuade them, look, it is not as onerous, there isn't so much paperwork as you think there is going to be, like, with European social funds or ERDF funds, for example. I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience or perhaps online.
Okay, so since we have a few minutes left, maybe we can share a nice memory of cost. I know Jean-Paul actually stated one. Maybe Lord can provide some nice experience during your.
I had many, but I think now, after these 2 years, I said the most meeting close at heart was the last meeting we had in January 2020. So that was our last meeting. Back then, I presented to the MC a whole plan of meetings on the activities, what we're going to do. And unfortunately, there were loads of changes. Before, we used to travel a lot. I mean, I used to say, oh my God, I have to travel again. I'm a mommy of 2 children, so leaving home is always a bit of a struggle. But now I'm dying to go back to what we were before. So hopefully, but yes, I think that is the event that it's close to heart at the moment, our last meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
similar experience. I was actually at the COST Scientific Committee meeting the week of the shutdown. So I returned to Malta and then we shut down. And yes, in fact, this experience with the pandemic probably will change some things. Maybe there are things that don't require, maybe not so much COST meetings, but definitely there are a lot of other EU meetings where I go to Brussels and then I say, why did I travel all the way to Brussels where I could have easily done this online? But COST meetings, the beauty of it is the networking. And networking, there's nothing that beats the discussion, the coffee breaks, same thing as a conference. I've attended 3-4 conferences online now. And yes, you listen to the talk, but you don't bump into people, you don't network, you don't actually discuss. So the travel itself, I'm at a stage in my life now where I don't look for travel. In fact, I avoid it if I can. I only do it if it's necessary. But there's nothing that beats face-to-face meetings. And COST, the beauty of it is that. And actions, they end up becoming friends. So you form connections. I mean, I still keep in touch with people from 10 years ago that I met in COST. So there's also a personal connection. So.
Okay, so maybe
I think I said what my own, but perhaps one very small thing. We just the MC of the action I'm involved in now just approved yesterday. Actually, I think it's still open for voting. The transferring some of the funds to virtual mobility grants, right, which I think is happening in other actions as well. So I think we're all in agreement that it is not ideal, but it is good that within COST itself there's already this flexibility of not wasting money, but rather using them in the best possible way through such virtual mobility grants as well.
If I may as well, I think nothing beats face-to-face. You become friends, good friends. And one big advantage is that when you host these short-term scientific missions or working groups or whatever in Malta, everyone wants to come to Malta. So they always look for a Maltese partner because Malta's quite attractive besides being an ITC country. And I think we have very good, as a university, we have an excellent conference facilities here. Lucien's team here, the conference unit, have a lot of experience now in hosting COST events with the limited budget there is for hosting management committee meetings, training schools, etc. And the project support office really help out with the financials as well. So I think face-to-face meeting, nothing beats them, and I do hope it's true. It's convenient online, no travel, but nothing beats face-to-face. My best memory actually is, as I've mentioned, at the end of 2016, just before Malta had the presidency of the EU. I actually hosted the Committee of Senior Officials here in Malta. It was the first sort of like a kickoff meeting for the presidency, Malta's president of the EU. Esplora had just opened, so we held it actually, it was the first conference held in Esplora, so we were the guinea pigs for the catering, for the venue, for everything in Esplora, where they do all the experiments now. The CSOs loved it, it was November, and there's always the cultural element as well. And we had the idea that, because it was November, okay, we'll do a little tour of, they were staying out here in a hotel in Valletta, it was convenient, and we used to go by bus to Kalkar every day. So I said, let's have our little cultural tour, just 2 hours in Valletta, and then cross over with the ferry to Kalkara. And all my colleagues were saying, November, you know what we're saying? It can easily be cancelled because of the weather. And I assure you, it's my favorite memory because the weather was perfect. This beautiful photo of the Grand Harbour with the sea glittering behind us. And everyone keeps telling me what a lovely day it was. So I think, these are the memories which we remember. And I think it's this exposure to the various cultures, to the way people work, the way people think, which is really important for an island such as ourselves. Something else is that I always like to compare COST as well. It's okay, it's a mini EU, but it's a bit like the Knights. And the Knights of the Order of St. John were also a mini EU. They came from different languages, 8 different languages. If you go to St. John's Cathedral, you can see the 8 different chapels. And this is what COST does. So you have these people speaking different languages, coming together with a common aim. The Knights, their common aim was, of course, to look after the sick people coming from the Crusades, to defend Christianity in the Mediterranean Sea, etc. And what COST it is to enhance the research community across Europe. So I think we're well placed here in Malta to participate fully in COST. I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience. I'm aware there's still time, but it doesn't matter. Exactly, we started earlier. Luciano.
Because I guess I didn't share a memory, and you reminded me of one. That COST action I mentioned, there was us and actually a member from MCAST both participating, and we co-organized one of the meetings in Malta, and we did exactly the same thing. So we gave them a tour of Valletta, and then we crossed by the Daisa to Birgu, and we had dinner in Birgu at night. And to this day, you're exactly right. To this day, they mention what a lovely time they had in Malta, and it enhances the profile of the country. Plus, they realize once they get here and they visit the university and they visit the labs and all that, that I don't think we should say it. We're a first-rate institution now. We're actually as equipped and as, even projects as many other countries, which again improves the image, which results in more people seeking Malta. We're a beautiful country. We have problems. Let's not kid ourselves. But we're still a beautiful country. We're still a desirable country. I used to live in the United States for many years. When you hold a conference in Florida, people flock. Malta is the Florida of Europe, the equivalent. So we are a country which are attractive for weather reasons and sea and sun, but now we also have the scientific part. So we have all the ingredients to be partners, to organize things. So my recommendation is that everybody should try to take advantage of that.
Just seconding what Janet said before, right? I think up to perhaps when it all started 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't the support structure which we have today. I mean, you mentioned here the venue. It's not just COST actions we organized here, but even the COST action, people still mention something like the frescoes downstairs in the meeting rooms downstairs. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful venue which has been, put up to scratch in recent years, which I mean really is something which showcases the university. The project support office. I mean, I remember. I mean, I'm okay with the administration, but I try avoiding it like the plague. So whenever there's something which involves too much, I tend to take a step back. But at different stages, the project support office, research support office is really helpful. So in a way, the barriers that might have been there before, the limitations that might have been there before, are being overcome. So that is something which anyone with a bit of reluctance to organize such things can rest assured that the support is really there. And I think it's very, very important.
Thank you very much. I think we can, unless there are any other questions.
Comment, if I may, because I also have experience with COST. So yes, I started at the project support office. You all know that a few years back, where yes, the request for organizing meetings in Malta was always very large. And so then we developed a system where we met with Lucienne and me for the budget at the time, and Lucienne from Valletta campus. And I think we worked well because we met, we saw the requirements, we prepared the budget, and it helps also with planning the meeting. And even here at the Valletta campus, they're fantastic, really, because they give suggestions, as Luciano said, like this thing of crossing to people, like they give all these great ideas on what to do. So even if you have no experience whatsoever in organizing a meeting, the Valletta campus are here to support you. And then I had the opportunity to join at this section in view of my master's in entrepreneurship. And yes, I had the same experience. Like in one meeting in Portugal, I learned about the social enterprise systems of all Europe, which was fantastic. And I loved the way that everybody was open and listening to each other and sharing experiences and compared the systems of different countries. So yes, it was a fantastic experience. Very highly recommended.
Thanks very much, Angie, for this, and thank you for inviting us to have this session this morning as well. I mean, the people here are just a few of the 800 people, well, it's about 500, some people are involved in too, who are involved in CAUSE. So if anyone is interested, to get an experience from their specific area, let us know and we'll try to match you or get you, to speak to somebody who's involved in a CAUSE action in the related area. I would like to thank you, Angie, and the whole RSSD team, Noreen and Excel, of course, who invited us originally, and Elena, who really support this, and Valetta Campus for hosting us. I'd like to thank Jean-Paul, Luciano, Lourdes, and Melchior, who accepted our invitation to be here today. And of course, Christelle and Ronald, I'm not sure if they're still online, who shared so much of their experience with CAUSE with respect to the Muslim point of view. Thank you very much for being here. Please don't hesitate to contact us. If you want to contact me, very simple, janet.mifsud@um or mercure.chini@gov.mt, or just contact Angie or whoever it was from the team and they will give you our contact details. Krista, would you like to say a few closing words?
Absolutely.
I can see you here on the line.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Janet and Melchior and all the other members of the crew, thank you really for organizing this, and really thank you for your strong support to CAUSE. I think it goes both ways. I think you're doing an excellent job in promoting CAUSE in Malta, and you're always very, very responsive. So we wish to return this also to you. So, and also hope that there will be some more applications from the Maltese research community in CAUSE. So really thank you for organizing this, and see you soon, hopefully in Malta.
Thank you, Krista, and please forward our best regards to your colleagues in the CAUSE hubs. Thank you, and I wish you all a good day, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to this exceptional panel for this very, very interesting discussion, which gave everybody a great idea of what CAUSE is all about and how it kickstarts, boosts a researcher's career.